Hi and welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my wrap up for the final book support group round 11. The final book support group is a readathon that is hosted by Steph from Steph Loves. I'm going to link her and her announcement video down below. That is happening on a regular basis. Sometimes it's a week long, sometimes it's a month long, sometimes it's just a weekend long. But it's always about reading the series on your TBR that you've been neglecting for like most of the year. Let's be honest. I did film a TBR video, I'm gonna link it up above, and you guys can check out the series that I'm not really caught up on and that I'm hoping to get to very soon. This was a week-long readathon this time around. It went from the 18th to the 24th of March, and I finally got around to reading some of my series. Were those the ones that I mentioned in my TBR video that they were priority? Probably not. Did I have a great time? Yes, I did. And I managed to actually read 8 things, and I'm so glad. There are going to be 2 more videos about things that I read in March, so go ahead and subscribe really quickly so you get notified whenever I post those videos. One of them is going to be the books that I read for middle grade March, which is a readathon that, like the name says, is all about reading middle grade. And then I'm going to do a video where I talk about the rest of the books that I read during March that have nothing to do with middle grade or nothing to do with the books that I'm mentioning in this video. And I'm going to talk about the bingo board that the final book support group had this time around and what books I read for what prompt later on. The first book that I read was the sequel to God Killer, and that is Sunbringer by Hannah Canna. If you have not read this series, I highly recommend you do check it out. This is such a unique reading experience. I love the sequel even more than I liked the first book, which I gave I think 4 stars. This is a 4.5 star. I am so hyped for this series, and I want to know what happens in the next installment. I think it's going to be a trilogy, so I do have some time that I have to wait for the next installment, but I loved this. And so in this series we have a world that is dominated by gods. Little gods, big gods, there are so many of them. And in the country that we are in prior to the start of God Killer, there was a war, like a civil war, where the king declared all of them as unlawful and that people can actually go ahead and just kill all the gods, destroy all the temples, and get rid of them. And they did, for the most part, and now there are only a few gods left, and there are god killers roaming the lands trying to get rid of the last of them. In the first book we follow Kissin, who is such a god killer. She is trying to revenge the death of her family when she stumbles upon a little girl who seems to be attached to one of the gods. In this case, the god of white lies, and she knows that if she tries to separate them, that the girl is most likely gonna die as well, so she thinks they need more power in order to separate them. So they all go on a pilgrimage together to this ancient town where they know that gods still exist, and they hope that they find someone that can help them. Along the way they pick up other people who are also trying to reach the city. One of them is Elogast, who used to be a knight for the king but has since then put down his sword and picked up, I don't know where I wanted to go with that sentence. What's the pin, the rolling pin? He picked up the rolling pin. So he became a baker, which is just a very cute image, and now the king returned to him and asked a favor of him, so he is also on his way to that city to help his old friend. At the end of book 1 something big happened, and something happened that I usually don't like in sequels, which is that the group is split up and they have different plot lines happening at the same time, and I usually don't like that because I'm like, no, I wanted them to be together and I want to see like where this whole thing goes, because it's just like a found family aspect and they're so cute together and there's like a slow burn romance kind of situation going on. I just wanted more of this group, and so I usually hate it when that happens, but in this book I actually enjoyed it. I really enjoyed both paths. I liked how it's all interwoven, like the way that the plot lines seem to go back together at some point. And there's, I think is it chapter 37, there's some magic that is happening to one of the characters, and it's just like, this whole moment, that was such a big moment. It was just great. Loved it, gave it 4.5 stars, and I need the next book now, like right now. I need it. The next book that I read for this readathon was actually a reread, and that is Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. This is the first book of the series, so not really a sequel, but I've been meaning to get back not only to this series but to this author. I have so many books on my TBR of this author, and so I thought I would start with his YA series. Spellslinger follows Society of Mages, where the young magicians have to unlock their magic at a certain point in time, meaning I think their 16th birthday. Until then they have to learn about magic, but if they don't unlock their magic till their 16th birthday, they can never become actual magicians, and they have to take up roles as kind of like servants and second-class citizens in this society. So there's a lot of pressure to become a magician, to be good at what they're doing, and so the main character has a problem because he is just days away from his birthday and he hasn't unlocked any of his powers. So at the beginning of the novel he tries to kind of cheat in order to have them think that he has magic. It doesn't really go his way and he is kind of becoming more and more of an outcast. It doesn't help that his younger sister has already surpassed him in the magic department and that his father is one of the most respected, biggest magicians in this society, and is kind of disappointed with how little magic he has. All of that is kind of pushed into the background when there is a new arrival in town, and that is this lady. She's one of the Argosi. They don't really have magic, but she does fight with these kind of playing cards, and she helps the main character, whose name is Kellen. She helps him out of some sticky situations, so they kind of have a bond now. And then there's a whole other thing about some magical creatures that are supposed to be like the animals, like the devil animals of an old foe of this whole society. And when Kellen stumbles upon one of them, things happen. This is not a cute little animal companion. He has like a potty mouth. They are not happy. They don't really like people. They don't like magicians. And it's very funny to hear them interact with each other because these squirrel cats, they can like interact and talk to people. So this was a lot of fun. I remembered some of the plot, but there was a lot of it that I had forgotten, so I'm glad that I went back and read this for this readathon. I gave it 4 stars. I think I did in the first time I read this as well, so nothing changed there. And then I picked up the sequel, Shadow Black. I'm only 58 pages into this. I'm really enjoying it as well. I've never read further than the first book, so this is all new to me, and we follow Kellen as whatever happened in the first book propels him out of his society into the big world, and he has to figure out what to do. So really enjoying it. I want to keep going, but that was kind of like the end of the month when I picked this up, the end of the readathon, the end of the month, and I haven't picked it back up since then, sadly, but I do want to continue. But I had the audiobook for this. I don't have it for this one, so that's I think also why I haven't picked it back up yet. The next thing that I read was actually a German book. I'm gonna link the middle grade March wrap up above, and I'm gonna link it down below so you guys can check out my thoughts on that one. I'm not gonna go into too much detail right now. It's called Rory Shy, and it is the 6th installment of a mystery series for kids, and it follows a very shy detective and his very talkative assistant. She is only, I think, like 10 or 11, and she helps him with his cases. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars, but like I said, go check out the other video if you want to know more about it. Then we have the 3rd installment in the Wimble House series by Charlie and Holmberg, and that is Boy of Chaotic Making. This was an arc that I had, and I'm really happy that I got back to this series. I am enjoying it. I think it's gonna be a 5-part series, so we still have a way to go with this one. The first one is Keeper of Enchanted Rooms, and in that we follow Merritt, who inherits an estate in the middle of nowhere, which seems to be like a magic house, so it does what it wants. It has a mind of its own. It is kind of enchanted, and so he asks for help from the Boston Institute for the Keeping of Enchanted Rooms, which is basically a society that helps get rid of these haunted houses. And the person that comes to help him is Holder, and it's kind of their love story, like slow burn in the first book. Fantasy, mystery, it has a whole lot of things happening in the first book, and I enjoyed it so much. It's very cozy. It is very mysterious at some points. The first does have like a thriller component that isn't really there in the sequels. Sorry if the lighting changed and the angle. I had to make room on my memory card. Also, I kind of had to take a second because I was filming a couple of videos today and I noticed that my brain was kind of getting foggy, and I'm editing my February wrap up right now, and I noticed that at some point my reviews were getting kind of weird. I guess because my my concentration and my energy level went way down. I didn't want that to happen with this video, so now I'm back. And let me see, I forgot where I was. I think I was talking to you guys about the boy of chaotic making, Merritt. He wasn't aware that he was going to inherit it, so he's very surprised, but he's very glad because he's a struggling writer, so he doesn't really have a big income or a wealthy family to fall back on. He is estranged to his family, and so there's a lot of things to unpack there. And I really enjoy the character of Hulda. She is, I think, in her mid-30s, I want to say, and so in this world that is basically Victorian era in our world, but just with magic, so she's almost seen as like an old maiden because she didn't get married, she doesn't have a family yet, and she's kind of reluctantly agreeing with the rest of society that she just thinks it's not in her cards to become like a mother and a wife. So when she gets to this estate, there's something happening between her and Merritt, and it's very cute, but it starts very proper, and they just need time to kind of get to know each other and work together. And in the first book we also have kind of like a mystery aspect. There are people going missing and something is kind of happening in the background to their story, so it does have kind of like a thrillery, horror-y aspect to it. It doesn't so much in the second book and also not in this third book. So we kind of have this found family that is happening in the first book, and we follow that during the sequels. And with the newest one, there is a lot of talk about marriage and what would happen to the main characters, like what would their responsibilities be and what certain people would have to give up or could still do in the near future. But there's also a journey in this one to London, to the royal family, because they found out something about one of the people in the house. I don't want to talk too much about that person because that would be a spoiler for the first book. But again, there's something happening in the background because someone seems to be set on getting rid of them and sending them back home by any means necessary. So again, there's something creepily in the background, but it's not as creepy or as mysterious as the first book, but it is still very much found family fun, and I can't wait for the next installment of the story. And with this one, I gave it 4 stars. The next 2 things that I read were Saga Volume 10 and 11. The Volume 10 was a reread for me. I read this before, but never in this format because I read it digitally before. And I kind of wanted to get back into it and see what this one was about again. And then I continued with Saga 11. Really enjoyed this as well. I gave both of them 4 stars. Saga is about a very unique kind of family. This is a universe where there are 2 sides to a war, and the main characters fell in love even though they're supposed to be enemies. They have deserted their armies and now are running from their respective countries and governments. And in volume 1 they get a kid, and of course this can't be for a lot of the ruling people because a child from these 2 parents is something that is not supposed to happen. So they are on a run for a very long time, and the story is told by this child looking back on her childhood. It has its ups and downs. There are volumes that are amazing, there are volumes that are only okay. These, like I said, I gave 4 stars. I'm not sure if there's ever gonna be a 5-star again. Something happened that can't be undone, and I'm really sad about it. Some of the love that I feel for this graphic novel series is something that might not come back, but I am still very intrigued and very happy to continue with these characters, and I highly recommend reading this series if you haven't already. The next thing that I read was the 2nd volume of Spy Family, which is a manga about a very unique family again, but this time around it is found family, about a man and a woman who agree to do a marriage of convenience. The man is a spy and the woman is an assassin, which the other one doesn't know, and they are adopting a girl who is a telepath, which they don't know. And so the telepath is the only one in the family who has any clue about what's going on with either of them. It is very cute, and it continued to be cute. I read this for the middle grade March readathon as well, so I mentioned that in that video as well. I gave it 4 stars and I can't wait to continue on with the series. And the last book that I read for this readathon was Fire by Kristen Cashore. This is a standalone book in a series of companion novels, the first one being Graceling, and these novels take place in different countries on a continent, so there are different aspects to each country. In the country that Graceling is taking part in, there are people who have certain graces, which means that they have abilities that are enhanced by magic, and they are considered dangerous and have a kind of different standing in society. And the country that Fire is taking place in is separated from that other country by a mountain range, so they don't really have any contact. Fire is the main protagonist in this book. She is considered a monster because in this country there are monster animals, so basically the same animals that we know, cats, dogs, bugs, but there are also like monster versions of those which are very bloodthirsty. They attack people, they attack especially other monsters when they smell their blood. Fire herself is human, but she's a monster human, so she has the ability to use her body, her looks, to manipulate other people into doing what she wants to do, which basically means that everybody who sees her is falling in love with her and wants to possess her and use her. So she's been secluded in her family's estate for most of her life. They kept her away from court, and she's trying to use her power as little as possible. She covers her hair, which is something that is really attractive to other people. She's trying to keep away from people that seem to be obsessed with her. She only really has one friend, and that is Archer, who is his childhood friend, and she's just trying to live her life as best as she can. But then a young prince comes to them and asks for her help, and she reluctantly goes and is thrust into this whole political thing where she doesn't know who she can trust, what she might be able to do with her power, and who wants to use her. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is a reread for me. Funnily enough, I only remembered one scene from this whole book, which is that she wants to help people who get attacked by these monster birds kind of things, and in order to do that she takes off her headscarf, she lets her hair out and attracts the monsters that way. And for me that happened like way later in the book, like as a huge showdown, but really it happened in the first 50 pages. So when that happened I was like, wait, this is when it happens? Like what happens for the rest of the book? So it was kind of like me reading this for the first time. There's also something happening in the background of this that has to do with Graceling. So I do think that if you want to check out this series, you should go and read Graceling first. I really enjoy this author's writing style. It did come out in 2012, so it has been out for a while, and I realized, not only from reading Graceling but also from reading Fire, that I adore how this author works in very important issues regarding women. In this case it's about the feeling of unwanted attention. Of course at first you're like, oh, everybody wants you, everybody loves you, like boo-hoo, poor Fire, but there is like an edge to it, and there's like something dangerous happening when people think they have a right to you and your body. And it's just, sometimes it was it's horrible to read just what happens to her and what men are capable of, even though she can defend herself, but she doesn't really need to. Also in every book so far the women had a very unique, for like a fantasy novel or like also for like a young adult novel, a unique approach to motherhood and what they want out of relationships. And I am so pleased that the writer kept these decisions and the wishes of the main characters true to their character. So in this one, Fire is very afraid of becoming a mother, not because she doesn't want to be, but because of the things that she would give her potential kid, because that kid would also be a monster and would have this power but also this curse basically thrust upon them without having consented to it. I love the love story that is happening. The only thing that I would critique about this book is one situation that I think could have been, I don't know why it's in here. So there is a guard that is keeping an eye on Fire and just helping her out, and this guard is a young woman and she's only 15. And I don't get why she's 15, because, and this is kind of a spoiler for later on in the book, but this girl gets not only into a relationship with an older guy, but is also later on getting pregnant by someone, and then in the end catches the attention of another older gentleman. I don't know why she needed to be 15. It could have worked just as well for the plot if she was in her 20s. And these guys, the one guy is I think about 20, 22, and the other one is even older, like maybe 30, and is in a position of power, and I don't really understand why they needed to make her so young. Like, why make her a 15-year-old? That's just weird. Also, I think Fire herself is 17 and she gets into a relationship with an older guy, but I don't mind it as much because the age difference to her love interest isn't as big as with the other one. But yeah, the 15-year-old, why? Why? That's the only thing that I would critique. I am planning on reading Bitter Blue. In April and continuing on with the series during the next couple of months. And with this one, we go back to the same country that Graceling is taking place in, so I'm glad to see a couple of characters returning and seeing how all the plot lines are interwoven. This is still a reread for me, but I don't remember anything. Like with this, at least I knew like who the character was and that one scene that I remembered. I remember this character from the first book. I don't remember any of the plot, but I'm happy because I get to return to this author's writing style and this author's world. So those are the books that I read, and let's get to the bingo board of this readathon. Steph always does this. It's not really something that you have to fill out, but it's fun to do. So there was take part in a sprint, which I did. Share TBR, which I did. Like I said, I had a TBR video, and you were supposed to do some self-care, which I did by staying on my couch and just recharging, because that's what I needed that day. Because I was thinking about going out and going to a cafe and doing like a whole thing about it, and I was like, no, what I really need for my self-care, for my mental health, is to stay in and do nothing, and I did that. So I'm happy to check that one off. And then you had some bookish prompts, and one was to read an anticipated sequel, and for that I put down Sunbringer. Then you had the final book, and for that I put Rory Shy. I'm guessing there will be more, but one, I'm up to date with the series, so it's the final book that's out, and also two, it's the final book for me because I don't think I will continue with that series. Again, if you want to know more, I'm going to link the middle grade March video for you to check out. The next thing that we have on the bingo is Continuation Station, and for that I put Boy of Chaotic Making because, like I said, I think it's going to be a 5-book series. And then we have Read a Graphic Novel. I did that. Then we have a poll pick, which I did. I put a poll on Instagram where I asked if I should read Spy Family, Saga, or Promised Neverland, and Spy Family won, so I put that down in the bingo. And then in the end we had read a TBR vet, and for that I read Fire. It isn't really a TBR vet because it is a reread, but I only read it in German before, so in that way it was a TBR vet because I haven't read this edition yet, and also I haven't read it in English, so that works. So this is all I read for Final Book Support Group round 11. I can't wait for the next round. There's always a series that I need to get back to, but this helped me very much in recognizing which series I want to prioritize and get back to, and I do go back to some of the series that I mentioned in my TBR video in April. And if you want to know more about that, go check out my TBR for the Magical Readathon, and I would love it if you would give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Let me know down in the comments what are some series that you want to continue. Have you read any good sequels lately, and are there any sequels coming out or final books coming out in the near future that you are happy to get to? I'm gonna go back to reading my sequels, and until the next time, I hope you have all the great reads. Oop, there goes the books. Bye.